You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fourth Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. It is Andrew and Donovan back here once again, and we are playing a little game of catch-up this week because
Indeed.
Back in May, we were off that month due to some, various reasons, if we're being completely honest with
I was
you.
sick, among other reasons, but yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't get to cover a few things, including Tales of the Empire. So we are here this week to discuss the two arcs of the miniseries. We're going to be talking about Morgan Elsbeth and Barry Zoffy's arcs in these episodes. We're going to do two mini episodes, so we're going to kind of split these two up. So Morgan's is going to be the one that we're watching first. So hello! We are going to be talking about the arc of Morgan Elsbeth and how this season really split between the two different stories of how the Empire and the dark side impact two different individuals. So I'm excited to finally be able to talk about that. And after rewatching the shorts, I find myself having a bit more to say on them than I did when I first watched them when they dropped on May the 4th.
Yeah.
Little bit of housekeeping off the top. If you have not checked out our Acolyte recaps, you can go ahead and check those out. We have recaps for all 8 of the episodes up on this podcast feed. Our most recent one for the season finale, hopefully just the season 1 finale, with Candace Caw of the Geeky Waffle. I was really hoping at that Manny Jacinto panel that we were going to get some kind of announcement at D23. But
I mean, he wants to. He wants to do another Acolyte. So, like, hopefully the rest of the people at Disney who can greenlight a new season will listen to him, because he's speaking for all of us here. We all want an Acolyte season 2.
Looks like we're gonna need to wait a little bit longer, but I still feel like it's a good shot we get a second season.
Same.
But another thing that did drop at D23 was our first trailer for Skeleton Crew, which we've been wondering when they were going to drop this for a while now. Of course, this was supposed to come out last year. It got delayed till the holiday 2024 season due to the writers' strikes and various other things that delayed this. All we've known about this for a while. We've had a celebration panel and everything. We know Jude Law is in it, and we know it's been described as kind of a Stranger Things meets Amblin meets The Goonies meets Stand By Me in space. And you got a lot of that in this trailer. Overall, what are your overall thoughts on it, what we saw, what you're expecting for this show, and what your overall expectations are for this series?
I really liked the trailer. I was surprised by the trailer in a couple of ways. Like, full truth, I was looking forward to this series, but it was definitely, in terms of the projects I was anticipating, it was down the list in just in terms of, like, because I love the premise and stuff, but when you've got stuff like the Acolyte and Andor, that's probably going to take the attention away from this somewhat. But I'm really intrigued by this series, and as you said, the Amblin. The feeling of, like, kind of Amblin era movies like E.T., Stand By Me, The Goonies, as you said, it was really felt here in this trailer. And there's a thing I really like, and I know some people weren't that big into it so far as I've seen on social media, but the home planet that these kids start out on, the fact that it looks so much like a suburban, like an American suburbia, actually kind of works for me, because I feel like it really is tapping into that.
I still don't know. It felt weird to me. Like, I'm sure it's gonna be fine when the show happens, but the fact that we've never seen, like, a middle-class suburban area in this universe, it's just off-putting. Like, you know it's got to be there. Like, it makes sense. We have the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor planets, so it makes sense that we have this, like, middle-class suburban thing
straight in the middle.
Just like seeing that and seeing, like, suburban neighborhoods and the little, like, I liked the bikes. The bikes were nice.
Yeah, the bikes were cool. It really captured that
stuff.
Stranger Things feel, didn't it? Like, with the kids on the bike.
It certainly did. But it was a little off-putting at first. I was like, is this a Star Wars show? Like, that took me off guard. But I think once we got into the full adventure aspect of this show, I was hooked. Like the minute
Yeah.
there was so like immediate, like when they're like, "Oh, I found this buried thing in the woods. You want to come see it?" It's like immediate. Well, that's Stand By Me right there. And just I do love the whimsy of these characters. You have our main character, the boy who's just the first thing you see him is looking up at his like little like toys of starships and stuff, and looking at his first venture into the greater galaxy. I'm immediately like captivated by these kids, and I know people were very thrown. Some people were thrown up. Oh, it's gonna be kiddie bullshit because it's a cast of young characters. But I mean, you look at Stranger Things, you look at like all those other movies that we mentioned.
Like the other movies, they're pretty much like you can watch them even as an adult and feel and not feel like the film is talking down to you in an area. Like E.T. gets dark. E.T. gets really into like emotions, like deep emotions. That's why so many people were touched by it as a film. But as you said, like I really already started to connect with these kids. Obviously, got to talk about Neil.
Oh, my son.
Yeah,
he's my new son.
He's a sweet little baby boy, and we all love him.
Guy.
It's just the most adorable thing. I feel like Nubs Nation is about to get a real test here with the Neil Nation rising up for sure, which I'm a proud member of now.
He's got the perfect voice too.
Yeah, this like completely innocent voice is just fantastic. But I really think that the suburbia thing is going to work for the show, because I feel like John Watts and Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, what they're doing here is they're really tapping into this kind of escapist feel that I think all of us have always wanted as Star Wars fans. Like we've all probably had a little bit of at some point, whenever we got into Star Wars, whether it was a kid or as an adult, we've all kind of had that escapist fantasy of, oh, imagine if like I could just go off into the Star Wars galaxy and have adventures. And so I really like the idea that the planet that they live on is almost so aesthetically far removed from, like, there's still stuff there that is Telltale Star Wars. You have your droids, you have like the screens and the speeders and stuff, but it feels alien because it's so suburban. And the fact that when we get onto the ship and we go out into space, there's the more familiar aspects when they go into the Outer Rim. That really kind of suits the whole escapist feel of these kids getting to go on their own Star Wars adventure and meet all these familiar Star Wars things, including a potential Jedi in the form of Jude Law, which, that's a question I want to ask you, Andrew. So the trailer ends with that stinger of Jude Law showing up and levitating the key and taking the hood off and looking very dramatically at the kids, and they say, "You're a Jedi." But here's the thing, though. Do you think he is a Jedi, or do you think he's something else?
I don't think so. I think he could, like, I do think he's Force sensitive. I think it could be kind of like a kind of character that Haja was in the Kenobi show, where he starts off as more of this like con artist, this swindler kind of character, but whereas he was just like using illusions to depict the Force. I do think he is Force sensitive, but I don't think, at least when we see him here, he's using his powers fully for good. I don't think he's a Sith. I don't think he's a Darksider, but I think he's more of like a schemer, a swindler kind of character. But I do think a lot of the crux and a lot of the heart in his big arc of the series is going to be him learning to care for the kids and eventually saving them in that big moment.
Yeah.
Someone did point out,
very Amblin, isn't it?
It's very Amblin. Alex Damon of Star Wars Explained did point out in his recap, and I just want to echo that it does feel it feels the most like a TV show out of these recent shows that we've had. It feels like the potential of each episode could be them exploring a new location, a new planet. And again, the way it looks, it feels very like, oh, this is new. But I also like it because we always talk about them not having too much in terms of new ideas or exploring the same areas. And of course, when we get something new like the Acolyte, people complain about it. So we have something like this where, yes, it's tied to the MandoVerse, because we do see some of the pirates from season 3. They were on display at D23. They showed up in the Celebration teaser last year. I don't think they were in the trailer here.
The wolf guy, like one moment, yeah.
Also, the fact that he's the same species as the Wolf Jedi in the Tarkovsky Clone Wars. Yeah, that's just
been a long time coming. Yeah,
been a long time coming. But I love the look of the droid too. 33 or Smee. Nice little nod to Peter Pan there. He's going to be voiced by Nick Frost. I just think the casting
so
is
happy
great.
about that. And
like Carrie Condon is their
like
school teacher. She's great. Nick Frost, and then Jude
So
Law,
good.
who I've always been a big fan of. I'm very excited to see him lead this show. I wouldn't be upset if he was a Jedi. That's just my inkling of what we've seen from this trailer, because we see just the hood, and it just seems like the kind of thing where like you start him off and you see these kids see him as a hero, and then it turns out, oh, he's kind of a hack, and then he eventually does become a hero at the end of the show. I think there's a nice little arc, and it fits, like you said, it fits for a story like this. It has those same Spielbergian kind of story beats here.
It's a thing Spielberg's a real fan of, isn't he? Like these kind of like less than perfect father figures who kind of like evolve into a more kind of traditionally heroic father figure. I mean, you mentioned Peter Pan with like the Smee droid. Obviously, Spielberg did Hook, and that was all about a very flawed like Peter Pan becoming the kind of childish, whimsical character again. I also love Nick Frost's casting in this. It's great. And I love that he's got kind of a pirate voice as well. "'Tis dangerous out here in space." Like a more gravelly version of his character from Hot Fuzz. I love it. I'm also going to get to do a Who Watch episode on this show for sure. Because Nick Frost I'm not doing it for the trailer. We'll save it for when he shows up in the show. But I get to do that because Nick Frost did appear in Doctor Who. And that's just another reason to have a smile on my face that
Absolutely.
we can continue it. We've had a Who Watch in nearly every show so far. So yeah, I'm glad.
Gotta get another one in here. This has been a show that I've been like kind of championing since it's been announced, just for the fact that its premise has really stuck out to me. Also, the fact that it was John Watts, who's the showrunner who wrote directed, I should say, the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, which I'm a big fan of. I love the coming of age aspects of those movies. So I think him telling a coming of age story in this universe, I think there's great potential to it, but also just because of the fact that it's really been overshadowed since it's been announced by nearly every other project. So I'm glad that it's finally going to have its time in the spotlight to like get that attention. And in a way, I do see why they had this panel at D23 and didn't announce the season 2 of The Acolyte, because that would immediately overshadow it. You kind of saw that already.
That's
with
a good point.
Andor season 2 and the Mando teaser, which I'm going to say this quietly, I didn't like that much. So Lilo and Stitch teaser that was 10 seconds had me more excited for that. I don't know where that came from. But to like have that moment in the spotlight, I think is going to be good for the show, and I think it's got the potential to surprise a lot of people.
That's exactly
I don't think it's
what I'm hoping.
I'm not saying it's going to be the best Star Wars show, but it's got so many aspects and tidbits to it that I think could make this a really special watch, especially during the holiday season. I know some people have been speculating that it might have some Life Day elements to the story. I think that would be perfect for a holiday release. And again,
I'd happily watch a Christmas special of it.
Yeah,
it looks awesome enough that you could do an actual Life Day episode. And
having these characters who, like you said, are in this suburban world, they get whisked up into the greater Star Wars galaxy, and having them have that idealization of looking at these, these starships in these hollow movies, and then immediately like thinking the ship is a buried Jedi temple. It's like the whimsy, and it just reminds me of like when we were young and our age and just like making up stories, but like actually seeing that in the Star Wars universe, I think has the potential to be something really, and like Stranger Things was with the kids playing D&D. It's like their in-universe version of that. Here, I think it's got potential to be really fun. And I personally am very excited for when the show comes out. I'm optimistic, I will say. I think it's got the potential to surprise. And I'm pretty excited, and Neil is my son. He is my son, and I will hear nothing else. Never ever say anything bad about my boy because his father will be coming for you if you do.
And he means it as well. He's got a lightsaber now. Don't
do.
test
I'm
Andrew.
gonna wait to reveal it, but I do.
Last minute prediction. I'm gonna say. Do you think Carson Teva will show up? Because we did see a couple of X-wings fly around there. I could kind of see that.
I think we're gonna get someone from the Mandalorian. Obviously, we know we're getting Vane, but I think someone from the cast is gonna show up. Whether that's Din himself or Carson Teva has kind of been the Nick Fury in a way.
Agent Coulson, I would say.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Agent Coulson. He showed up in Ahsoka. He was a great link between Mando and Ahsoka. So I would not be shocked at all if he does show up in Skeleton Crew. I wouldn't mind it.
I wouldn't mind Zeb showing up because the thought of Zeb dealing with kids is just hilarious to me.
I hope they keep this running gag going of him showing up in every show but Ahsoka. Just don't have him in there. Just keep throwing him in all the other shows.
Like I didn't think he'd be in the Mando film, but that's just nuts. The shot of him sitting with Din in a new Razor Crest is crazy. Like like how do you feel about the Razor Crest? Like
I don't like it. I want to like if they just rebuild, like it's just a new one, they remake it, cool. But I like this.
I do like the N1.
I like this thing a lot. And I don't know why you would introduce that and then just be like, Razor Crest, bring it back.
Is it going to be like, is the N1 going to be like attached to it then? And they're going to do some like kind of, because I'd be all for that. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
I've also got to mention the Andor season 2 trailer. Simply for the fact that
I just wanted to bring up, before you bring up Andor, I just wanted to piggyback real quick with saying it feels like another thing of my main complaint with season 3 of The Mandalorian was they either stagnated Din's development or went back after what we got in season 2. I feel like going back to the Razor Crest is another, let's go back to where it was in season 2.
A little bit, yeah. I do agree.
The N1 and all that stuff was one of the things that I did enjoy moving forward with Din's character. And I mean, I like the Razor Crest a lot. It's a cool ship. But it feels very like, all right, well, we decided to market this thing as soon as we blew it up.
Well, Zeb is flying it, so maybe
now let's bring it back. Maybe? I don't know. Either way,
is Mando gonna do a Deadpool, like in Deadpool and Wolverine when he sees Dogpool?
What is that?
Is Zeb the nice pool of the Mandalorian universe?
Oh my god! All right, but now we can talk about Andor. Let's go.
Yes,
let's
K2SO, my guy is back. I'm so happy just to see him and hear Alan Tudyk's voice. I'm so happy that he's back. It's just awesome. I can't say enough good things about K2SO.
K2, we're getting Krennic back. We're getting Saw Gerrera back. It looks so cool. Casting in that like little suit number, the red number 2 with the slick back hair.
The kind of like he looks like he just walked onto the set of a Grease sequel, and I'm really here for that. Yeah,
I'm also here for Hasbro doing an incredibly rare thing of releasing the Black Series line before the season comes out, which this is a rarity. But I will happily take it. Maybe next time, make a figure of the main antagonist of your series in your line. Have you ever thought about that? Still not. I'm mad. But Andor looks great. Cannot wait.
It really does. I'm so excited to see Krennic get into it with the ISB. Like that's a weird thing I'm weirdly excited about because that character fits so well into the dynamic of the ISB that we saw in season 1, and the thought of him trading jibes with Partagaz and Dedra Miro. It's really cool. And again, Ben Mendelsohn, he's a really good actor. He's so good at playing like total bastards. So I'm just more excited to see more of him.
Absolutely. Speaking of total bastards, Morgan Elsbeth. That's a
good segue.
Years ago, my people were all but destroyed. My anger gives me strength. It is that strength I offer the Empire.
I mentioned at the beginning of the episode how these shorts told 2 different stories of how the dark side impacts two individuals. With Barriss, it consumed her at first, but she was able to break free of it and return to the light, whereas Morgan was more and more consumed by it, to where by the end of her story, she is just nothing but hate and anger and revenge over what happened to her people and herself against the world. What I will say, if I'm being completely honest with you, I really, really like this first episode. The second episode, I think the Thrawn stuff, really enjoy it. The third episode is just there. And this has been my problem with both seasons of Tales so far, is the concept I really enjoy. I think they can do so much with the concept. And there's one group of shorts that I overall really enjoy. And there's one group of shorts that's just there for me. I liked the Morgan shorts fine. There wasn't one that I disliked, like I disliked that third Ahsoka short from Tales of the Jedi. But it's just, even after a second watch, it's just there. And I guess my biggest critique I have with Morgan's story is when the two characters we were going to be focusing on this season were announced, I was intrigued because one, Barriss, absolutely, hell yeah, we finally get to see her story again. But also the fact that Morgan Elsbeth, she's been a character that I've been intrigued by, but I wasn't necessarily super invested in both Mando season 2 and Ahsoka. So I was like, okay, this will be something it'll help us out. It's not like, oh, here's Vader. It was not like how Tales of the Jedi, I think, maybe played it a bit too safe. Oh, here's Ahsoka again. Elsbeth felt like a nice, oh, we can focus on a different character. But I feel like I have learned and am connected with Morgan after these three shorts the same amount I was before I watched the shorts. And that's my one critique here.
Yeah. You don't really... Oh, thank you. You don't really learn a great deal more about Morgan. She does remain a very internalized character throughout those three shorts. They're good, the shorts. Yeah. They're not bad necessarily. There's just... Watching them, I had the same feeling, because I did overall come away with a better appreciation for the shorts. Rewatching them,
I liked them more on the second watch. I will say,
yeah. But I did
the Barriss
overall.
Really,
the Barriss ones are really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I did kind of come away feeling with the Morgan shorts and a little bit with the Barriss shorts, but to a lesser extent, that we were missing some steps here in the character's journey, because, like you said, that first short taking place on Dathomir, where we rejoin the massacre of the Night Sisters at the hands of General Grievous and the Separatists. It's really harrowing stuff.
Yeah.
It's really good. And even the little thing afterwards of Morgan refusing to learn that lesson, that's really good. But then when we get to the second short and we have the whole thing with her meeting Thrawn, it does feel like suddenly we jump to that episode and she's suddenly now taken over the planet Corvus, and she's now pitching these ideas to the Empire, and it feels like we missed something in terms of her going from having nothing in the first episode to having all these resources. I will say that the third episode, I do like the way the third episode ends, because
with the
it has a very well, not just with the Bo-Katan tease, and I do think overall that if nothing, those two episodes do make the Jedi episode of The Mandalorian much stronger, because we do kind of get a sense of how the town, the Caladan, the city of Caladan is how that is oppressed by Morgan, and the victory of Mando and Ahsoka liberating it from Morgan's grasp does feel a little bit more weighty now. And I do really like that there's a really strong visual metaphor for Morgan's character and where her path has led her to. Because ending it with her walking away as there's a wildfire happening.
That was a nice shot.
It's a nice shot, and it sums up her character perfectly, because her anger, she allowed to blaze out of control. And it's really appropriate as well that we're talking about fire, considering that she is a Night Sister. And there is a moment in Jedi Survivor, it's not a deep spoiler, so I don't know I'm still unsure how far Andrew is currently from Jedi Survivor. It's a moment, I think they put it in the trailer, where Merrin says to Cal, she talks about how the Force can be the dark side can kind of be like fire, it's like fire. If you have to learn to control it. It can give you great power, but if you don't control it, it will consume you completely. And Morgan is a textbook example of that. She feels so righteous in her anger and her vengeance that she becomes completely blind to the consequences of it, to the point where she actively winds up helping the very forces that actually massacred her people in the first place, because this was done not necessarily just by the Separatists, but by the Sith. The Sith wanted to get rid of the Night Sisters so they weren't a threat, so they weren't a rival, and the Sith then later create the Galactic Empire. So it kind of like it's a really tragic character for sure. Kind of like I feel like this also mirrors Dooku very well, because just like with Tales of the Jedi, we have like a character who we know the end of their story. We knew how Dooku's story was going to end with him dying at the hands of Anakin, and we know how Morgan's story is going to end with Ahsoka taking her out at the end of season 1 of Ahsoka. Which is kind of funny that like the characters in both halves of these have been killed by both the same master and apprentice duo. That is kind of funny. But yeah, overall, Morgan's shorts, they're good. They're really well made, and the scripts are quite good. But there just feels like there's something lacking on a character level with Morgan.
I felt like having 2 of the shorts take place on Corvus, I would have maybe preferred like an in-between of one in between what we see in the Path of Hate, the Path of Fear, and the Path of Anger, which was the second short. Like in between that Thrawn short, how did she get to that point where she is the magistrate? Whereas we see her kind of like where she already is in Mando season 2, and then the third short is just her even more consumed by power and closer in timeline to where we were in season 2 of The Mandalorian. I do want to mention how effective that first short was for me. Just the beginning of it and everything. Seeing this massacre in a different perspective after, like, we saw it in the Clone Wars, and it was the focus of an arc there. But it's had so much more significance in recent years due to Fallen Order, due to Asajj Ventress showing back up, and due to Morgan Elsbeth and her being confirmed to be a Night Sister in Ahsoka, and just her allegiance and her just all-dying loyalty to Dathomir, and her having that revenge in her heart till the very end, which was that great line, for the Empire, for Dathomir.
For the Empire.
Yeah, which we got more of that in this arc, which was just great.
Yes, we did. And it was very gratifying. To see Thrawn in the Clone Wars art style was something I've wanted for quite a while.
Yeah, no, it checked all the boxes. You know what else checked all the boxes is Grievous being freaking cool again and scary again. This short single-handedly made me be like, yep, nope, Grievous and canon is cool again. Because the run! It's the hardest thing I've ever seen in my life, and it worked so well. Of just how this was taking place, like seeing her mother, who was also voiced by
Diana Lee in Ahsoka,
Yep. And like watching Grievous take her out and then just screaming that and laughing at young Morgan.
And he did a dirty trick again.
Terrifying.
Like, just like this, he did the same thing with Nadav, only this time he used a lightsaber. It was that third arm again with the lightsaber. I was like,
again, my two favorite Grievous stories in canon are Lair of Grievous and this short. It's just I loved it. And the new look, the bit we saw in Clone Wars season 7, but seeing it here on full display, dude, it looks so good.
They put it to use. They didn't waste it.
In these
they didn't waste it.
Are tremendous. But I also loved how we got to focus on the Mountain Clan and getting to see a different form of witches on Dathomir, which who would have known that about a month and a half or a month after the show came out, the controversy would be about there being another group of Force witches in the universe, even though we see one in the short right here, and no one gave a shit. Yeah, I don't, we make stuff up here in Star Wars fandom, but
we choose to fixate on weird little things like bricks and screws. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
Oh,
really
God.
liked the Mountain Clan. The Mountain
Yeah.
Clan were really cool, though. I liked how different they were from the Night Sisters with their general design. It kind of made it very clear visually that they perhaps lean more towards the light side of the Force, whereas the Night Sisters tap into the dark side with the blue light. And I kind of noticed an interesting detail with their mountain homes, that it does kind of look a similar way to how the mountains look in Fallen Order when you visit Dathomir. And I couldn't help but wonder if, like, whether Morgan's actions force the Mountain Clan to relocate over time, because they draw attention to she draws attention to the Mountain. Yeah, she draws attention to the Mountain Clan through the droids, and it's not as if that I don't know that for sure, and I don't know if that was the intent, because obviously the Mountain Clan, which is a very powerful, as evidenced by like that one witch taking all of the droids out with one, like,
the matriarch taking that was such a cool shot.
And I love the message as well. Like,
yeah.
just because someone is unwilling to fight doesn't mean they aren't capable. Some people just have like a more tactful way of approaching things, and it's a very kind of tragic episode, isn't it? With like the matriarch's daughter being her, like Morgan preying on her fear and getting her and several others to like leading them to a Night Sister cache of weapons, and all of them are killed as a result. And it's such a sad moment when the matriarch says to Morgan, "It seems your path is set, Morgan Elsbeth," and you get that parting shot of her standing by the fire, where she will still be by the end of the series. Like, if we had had a few more like installments and maybe longer run times, I feel like we could have got to a point where that end shot would be a lot more affecting in terms of just like, wow, that's like very, very tragic.
Yeah, no, I thought it was probably the best ending of the three. Although I really like that end shot in episode 3 as well. But again, like having her ignore the message of the mother and get her daughter killed as a result was impactful to see. This episode pulled no punches with its emotions. You definitely see the revenge building up more, or the desire for revenge build up more and more and more with her with each passing scene, which I really enjoyed. Then we cut to the second episode and we see her trying to pitch the TIE Defender to this group of Imperials, which was a nice tie to Rebels. And then we get to see Pelion in animation for the first time, and then eventually see her fight Rook, and which meant that it led right to Thrawn. And we hear, that glorious voice for the first time.
As I said, it was most gratifying to see Grand Admiral Thrawn, or Admiral Thrawn, he has yet to be promoted, step into the spotlight for this episode.
It was good.
Remembers the Night Witches of Dathomir. I'm like, oh my god, it hits you so right cool. There.
Like to hear him talk about like about how the Empire is like having diagnosed what's going to happen to the Empire and how the rebellion needs to be stamped out. It's so ominous, but really, he's just such a like. Lars Mikkelsen's performance is just so good. Like his voice is so hypnotic, and the level of command he brings to Thrawn's lines are just fantastic. Like it's a joy to hear him speak in whatever like project he shows up in. He definitely elevates the episode like for his brief appearance in it. And as you said, it's really cool seeing Pelion show up more directly affiliated with Thrawn. Like he was played by, I believe he's played by Xander Berkeley, who was he played John Connor's stepdad. That's one role I know him from in Terminator 2, which is such a nuts thing. He's gives such a different performance in that versus like playing the stuffy Pelion here. Like, but it was cool. And I also have to mention Rook as well. Warwick Davis doesn't speak any lines, but it's still Warwick Davis, which I almost forgot actually. Like with Warwick Davis. But the thing is, Warwick Davis actually appeared in another sci-fi show that I can talk about. Yeah. So I think it's time for a Tales of the Empire edition of Who Watch. Yes.
Of course it's Warwick Davis too.
Listen, dude, I'm shocked that he's only been in one episode. He appeared in 2012. Warwick Davis did. Finally, despite his like stature in the sci-fi community, it took until 2012 for him to show up in Doctor Who. And when he did, it was in the 7th season of the revived series of Doctor Who, during Matt Smith's 3rd season, in the episode Nightmare in Silver, where he played a character called Porridge. in an episode that takes place on like an abandoned amusement park in the future, where like a bunch of like future soldiers are forced to fight against the Cybermen, which I don't know if you know too much about like Doctor Who villains. They are a group of they're basically humans who have converted themselves into these mechanical bodies in order to replace their dying stuff. So that everything apart from the brain is basically put into the Cyberman bodies, and they're basically like walking metal men that are like really difficult to kill. They're one of the Doctor's most enduring adversaries aside from the Daleks. But it's not the best episode, honestly. Nightmare in Silver. It was kind of my least favorite of that season, but it was really cool to see Warwick Davis there in Doctor Who.
Bet.
Like, honestly, this is the most last minute episode of Who Watch ever. I almost didn't think about it because he doesn't speak any lines in this. Warwick Davis, he just grunts. So I completely forgot that it was him voicing Rook.
I believe I was at that panel when they announced that he was voicing him in Rebels season 4.
That's so cool.
And that was just like, that was at that moment I wasn't familiar with the character or anything, but like getting like, you could tell how excited he was of like getting to play a character like this, which is very like off the beaten path from his normal array of characters in this franchise. So
with
that
W.
cool.
Warwick, it's not.
No, it is not. The other thing I did like though was getting to see actors that were in that Jedi episode of Mando reprise their roles in this in Morgan shorts, having Wing be a focal character. Even though he still doesn't get to do much, I was reminded of like, oh yeah, he was in those Mando episodes, and I like that they're doing their best efforts with these newer characters that we've seen introduced in the streaming shows, have their same actors reprise their roles in animation, like how Ming-Na Wen returned for the Bad Batch as Fennec Shan. I like that we're getting that continuity, because while I will always love and respect our famous Star Wars voice actors and actresses, it is nice that we're getting to see like the live action actors return to play their roles in different mediums. I think that's always cool.
And
even for like minor characters like the
Wing,
like Wing,
like it was nice to see an expanded role for Wing, and as I said, you do get a more of a kind of sense of how the people of Caladan feel about Morgan Elsbeth. You kind of see how they gave into their greed and listened to her when she talked about bringing them prosperity under the Empire, and you see how they kind of wind up paying for this really through that kind of like through that greed, how Morgan winds up oppressing them. And there's that very kind of there's one moment that's a little sad when like they kind of rail against her and call her a witch after she says that the Empire didn't listen to her, and she's like, oh, after everything I've done for them, this place isn't my home. It felt like that
they never could be, or they never could be my people, or whatever.
And it's the kind of thing where it's like, also, I would have. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, little funny for them to like know that she's a Night Sister here, but then like not mention it at all in that Jedi episode.
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, she's a Night Sister. Jen would be like, what the hell?
To be fair, Mando doesn't really speak to any of them really, and I suppose if any of them mention she's a witch, she probably put them in one of those like little electro stockade things that we see in the episode, which they're setting up by the third episode, and that is an ominous moment where that character walks down the walkway, and we see just how grim everything has got. But I did like that we got more attention on it. As I said, I think again the episode doesn't have enough time to get into it because these are very, very short. They're like, are they 15 minutes? I believe
they're like anywhere from like 12 to 15 minutes. Yeah,
and I do think that hurts the Morgan episode.
A lot of the Morgan ones were on the shorter side. Like the first one was pretty long, but the second and the third one, you don't really have much time to breathe. Especially this third one. Like we see Shelby Young's character, who to me felt like it was a design straight out of Star Trek Prodigy, which I liked it, but it felt like a different.
It's kind of appropriate, isn't it? Because she's off from that planet, but she's an emissary of the New Republic, which is just...
and all the people there are like, the what? Like because Morgan has prevented the spread of news to all these people, so they don't even know that the Empire's fallen at this point. And then just seeing Morgan be like, nope, and then kill everyone, and then Nador calls Bo-Katan, and that's about it. It's like, oh, no one's coming, and then people come. So like that's, again, I liked these shorts, but again, my biggest complaint with them is, like I said, I went in not knowing too much about Morgan. I went out not knowing too much about Morgan. I know that she's very angry, and I know that's consumed her, and she's let it that become an evil dictator and really become the very thing that she has sworn to hate since childhood, when her home was destroyed by the Separatists, which again is the power of the dark side. It is nice to get that parallel story with Barriss in these arcs, and I think it makes the Morgan stories feel more complete and satisfying. But on their own, I do still have that same problem I did with Tales of the Jedi of like, the concept is great. For some reason, there's one group of shorts that I think is very clearly the stronger group of the two, and it's not the Morgan Elsbeth ones in this case. I like them. They're better upon rewatch, but they're just there for me.
Yeah, and it's sad because it's like Diana Lee Inosoto is a really good actress. She's obviously a phenomenal stunt woman, as we saw in both Mandalorian and Ahsoka.
But
she's great here as well. She brings a real menace to everything Morgan says. Like when she in episode 3, when she's confronted by that New Republic emissary, the way she delivers the line, "My world has been burning since I was a child. Why should this one be any different?" Like the disdain in her voice is so apparent, and she brings real presence to Morgan, to the point where I'd be interested to know if it was always the plan to involve Morgan Elsbeth in the Ahsoka show, or if she impressed Filoni and Favreau so much with her performance that they wound up bringing her back, because she really has presence, and I it's a shame that we couldn't get more episodes, or at least a longer runtime to really delve in.
I want to know what the timetable was of like her and Mando. Like, was she always planned to be in Ahsoka, or was it just here? And then like that leading into this, I would like to know like what the timetable was for that, of like when they made those decisions. Like, I definitely see why they chose Elsbeth to have this like focal point in this series. I think it was a smart choice. I just wish, like I said, we got to know more about the character, because it's a character that I so want to like be completely engaged with, but there's still just something there that's missing for me. I don't know what it is. She looks cool. The performance is great. It's just something's not there yet, and I don't know what it is. I appreciate them trying. I liked these shorts, but I'm still just like, I wish I had a little bit more.
Let's maybe she could have a guest role in the whatever animated series they're making next at Lucasfilm, which we still don't know. I so thought we were going to get an announcement or something at that D23 panel. We got nothing.
Oh yeah, there's more. There's so much more to come. What? What is?
Tell us. Give us a crumb, Lucasfilm Animation,
please.
You
gave us Frozen 3 and 4 at the same time, but you can't.
And Incredibles 3,
like the next show.
Come on, we need it. Give us a morsel of something. Are you doing a show about the path?
Something.
Come on, we need something.
There are things in Barriss's shorts, that third one, that have me thinking are a tease of what more of what the next show could be.
Yes, me too.
I think that's where we're going to wrap things up about Morgan Elsbeth's arc in Tales of the Empire. Tune in later this week when we will have our thoughts on Barriss Offee's shorts for Tales of the Empire. See you there.